I'm thinking about pistons, there's about 3 things that comes to mind. Strength. I want the strongest piston that'll put up with all the abuse that I can possibly throw at it. That's huge. Weight. There's a flip side to that. I want the lightest piston I can get away with without sacrificing strength. The last thing I think about is the absolute hell that we put pistons through. It's ridiculous when you think about it. A race engine can run 6,000 degrees in the combustion chamber. 1,500 pound pressure waves bombarding these pistons. And then you compound all that with some lunatic behind the wheel with a heavy foot and a big ego. It's a recipe for disaster. It's no wonder any of them work. How can you possibly blame a piston for failing? They fail from abuse. And then we blame the piston. Oh man, they wouldn't put up with that. And this is why choosing the piston for an engine like this is so critical. We need a lightweight piston that's going to last. We can't afford to fix this thing if it breaks. So we can't be breaking it. We got to put a good piston in it. We're sitting at about 5,000 feet. Hang on. Let me give Daniel a call real quick.
Hey man, what's going on?
I meant to have those numbers for you. I apologize.
Hey, Kev, don't sweat it, dude. It's all good, man.
I know, but I told you I was going to do it.
Yeah.
I might as well go ahead and use the one.
That's the beautiful thing about what I'm doing. I'll make whatever you want.
I know, but you got plenty to do. You don't need me pestering you.
And then also what I looked at doing too is I'm going to stick with it's a steel rig setup. And it's a 043 top, 16 second, and a 3/16 oil for the street. So street strip. Dip, like a D-dish kind of setup where you have that quench pad. I don't think I can get that many cc's out of that because your stroke is so long.
Right.
And I can get that many cc's out of it to get your compression down to 12 to 1.
I see. Yeah.
So I got a couple things working against me, I guess, per se.
You know, when we're trying to make decisions like that, I mean, you're the expert, obviously, but I would just always lend towards structural integrity. So whatever we got to do, you know, even if we got to sacrifice some quench somewhere.
Print, dude. And you can take a look at the print and have a really good idea of what you're pouring gasket, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll put you in 0 deck, get you 40 quench.
Yep.
And then you'll be solid, man.
From a structure standpoint, if we need to raise the compression ratio just to make sure the piston's thick enough in the spots that you're interested in, I want you to have that latitude to do that.
Twitch area, I can take a look at, like, you know, the crown thickness. I want to keep that crown. I don't want anything, you know, thinner than 200 underneath that crown. I want to keep it.
I am so excited. The Icon Forged Racing Pistons. And here they are. Look at that. Holy cow. All right. Here's what we're going to do. We knew we needed a 4.5-inch bore piston ever since we went to the big aluminum block. We also knew that we needed B1 valve locations. So we need a piston manufacturer that produces pistons with those valve locations. What we didn't know is what the compression height needed to be for this crank, for this block, for this connecting rod. Now, there's two ways we could do it. We could simply just do it the old school way and do the math. You know, we know deck height, we know rod length, we know stroke, and what we're left with is then the compression height. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I cheated this a little bit. We're going to go over to UEM's website and use their compression height calculator to figure out the compression height for this piston. So this is how I did it. So we're going to jump over here on UEM's website. It's United Engine and Machine Pistons, so it's uempistons.com. We're going to go to their text section off the home page. We're going to go down to calculators. And from here, we're going to find the piston compression height calculator. And we're going to use this to figure out the dimensions of this piston, so that way you're a little more prepared. You want to get a set of custom pistons made. But just real quick, you know, there's always a couple different ways to do this. I'm kind of a control freak. I like to know all the numbers. I tend to want to provide as much information as possible. But you can give them a call, and they can do all this information over the phone. They got a toll-free number, 1-800-648-7970. Or if you're not a cheap bastard, you can call them 775-882-7790. You give them a call, tell them Griff's Garage sent you, and you need a set of custom pistons. All the guys over there are amazing. Click on that. So it's just going to want to know the three variables here. They want to know our stroke. So we're going to put in 4.625. It wants to know our rod length. We're going to put in 7.1. And then the last variable is going to be the deck height. It comes in at 10.720. All right, so we're going to hit submit. And right there, the compression height for our new piston is going to be 1.308. So that is going to be the distance from the center of the wrist pin to the top of the crown of the piston, 1.308 inches. All right, so once I had all the information about the dimensions of the piston and whatnot, and I knew that this was going to go on a B1 cylinder head, which it'd probably be a good time for me to mention this. I probably should have said it in my cylinder head porting video a long time ago. I think a lot of people don't know that the B1 cylinder head platform, the entire reason for it is they moved the valves into the center of the bore so that their effective opening is in the center. We all know that the valve approaches the bore at an angle, right? When the valve's fully open, you want it to be as far away from the cylinder wall as possible. And so the entire platform revolves around the valves being relocated in the head. Therefore, they always require a special piston. Over at UEM, they're hardcore Mopar guys over there. They know the importance of the B1 platform when it comes to making all-out horsepower. So they have an entire product line dedicated to these specific valve locations. A lot of the stuff's on the shelf. They got no problem whipping you up a custom set. So here's what I did. I gave him a call and asked Daniel Shearhold if I can come by and talk about this new project. I go over to United Engine, I walk in, and I look down on Daniel's desk, and there's the most gorgeous piston I've ever seen in my life. I'm like, Daniel, what the heck is this? He's like, that's one of the pistons out of Jeff Lutz's new engine. He starts telling me about the hard anodized coating and how they coat the top ring groove so you don't get the micro welding under the extreme detonation conditions and stuff. The line-to-line coating. He's telling me all this stuff. All the while, I'm looking at Lutz's piston, right? When Daniel's done talking, I'm like, just give me what Lutz has. That's how this started. And so that's what I get. Effectively, we got the same pistons that Jeff Lutz has. And a lot of other famous engine builders, race car builders and whatnot. This is the new standard in high-performance pistons. I am absolutely blown away by the workmanship that comes out of the shop over there. And I mean, you guys all know me by now. I'm a pretty loyal guy, and I'm always going to spend my money locally whenever possible. We got a lot of automotive industry manufacturers here in Carson. Not as many as we used to have, but we still got a few. And when it comes to pistons, I had two choices because there's two piston manufacturers in town. There's United Engine and there's Bill Miller. Both of them are great. So now let's look at some piston rings. These are the piston rings that United Engine supplies. In this case, we went with an 043 top ring, so a really thin top ring, and then a 16th inch second ring, and then a conventional 3/16 oil control ring. They're a moly ring, and they're super high quality. Okay, the last thing that I want to show you here is these. Okay, when you start telling your piston manufacturer that you're going to be hitting this new engine with nitrous oxide, it makes them a little nervous, I have to admit. So right here, wrist pins. They're a heavy wall thickness to put up with the abuse of nitrous oxide. If I wasn't going to run nitrous oxide, I could have put a thinner wall pin in this engine, but we're not taking any chances. We want this thing to last for a long time. And we all know nitrous motors have a reputation for not lasting a long time. We're going to change that. Hopefully we can be smarter about that whole process. Okay, so a little bit about the line-to-line adaptive skirt technology. It's a braidable skirt coating applied at the skirt clearance for a zero fit. So this is a 4.5 inch bore piston. It's a 4.5 inch bore block. These are going to go in nearly perfectly tight, and the line-to-line coating is going to braid into place. It's going to show up in our first oil change. After our very first heat cycle, we're going to dump the oil, we're going to put fresh oil in it, we're going to let the engine cool down, and then we're going to fire it back up, bring it back up to operating temperature. We're going to do it by the book. We're not going to cut any corners on this thing. The anodized piston crown. Anodizing limits micro welding of the ring to the ring groove under severe conditions. It produces a very hard surface for the ring to rotate on. As we all know, the rings, they don't just stay where you put them. They kind of walk their way around the piston. They sort of rotate in a way. These coatings are always applied to the crown, and it also creates a barrier for corrosive fuels. You don't want some of these fuels sitting on the aluminum parts. They actually will sort of eat away at the surface, especially if the vehicle gets parked a lot, like a race car. We ain't building race cars around here. We're building street cars. Oh, we say she ain't no race car. So that's the piston. That's the rings, and that's the wrist pin. We'll bring the scale in, weigh some components, figure up our bob weight, and then get this stuff over to the machine shop. All right, check this out. Bam! Okay. So let's set the piston on here. See what we got. Oh, look at that. 585 grams. Nice. Connecting rod. A 7/100 long connecting rod. That's 844 grams. This little fixture I made when I was in my 20s. Don't laugh. A couple of bearings and a swivel. Just gently set the connecting rod on, and we're just going to weigh the big end. All right, so the big end of the rod looks like it weighs 607 grams. Look at that. It's exactly the same as what Eagle said it weighed. Next thing we're going to do, our bearing inserts. All right, 48 grams. Here's the heavyweight of the bunch. Look how thick that thing is. Dang. She's beefy. Piston pin, 197 grams. Our little spiral locks. And here are our piston rings. I love the way that they're packaged. Look at how thin that is. 043. 43 thousandths thick top ring. Super light. Inch, and then the 3 pieces of our oil control ring. Okay. The ring pack and that is with the support rail that it comes with. Okay, now we're over here at performanceenginetech.com. And they have a really nice bob weight calculator that's free to use. So you just come in and fill out the questions in these boxes. So they want to know your piston. So we're going to put in 585, 197, pin locks or spiral locks. Rings, bearings, small end of rod, and then big end of rod, 607. And there we go, 2397. That's our bob weight for this engine. So we weighed all of our own components. We figured out our bob weight. So now we can just show up at the machine shop and tell them to balance the crank at 2397. We got our new pistons. We got everything weighed out. We got our bob weight calculated. Came in under 2,400 grams, barely. But for a 588-inch motor, that's not too bad, especially with a steel rod. I got in touch with legendary West Coast engine builder Harold Long. He agreed to take on the machine work. I'm excited about that. He does really good quality work. I also asked him what his dyno schedule was for this spring, and if there was a chance that I could get a spot maybe before this racing season. If so, I would love to have this thing together and then go to the dyno, give you guys some numbers. That would be a fun day. I also want to take a second and say thank you for everybody that has been following along with the channel. I really appreciate it. I got this new studio set up, and it's gonna help streamline that whole process. So hopefully I can start putting out more videos. It's a very difficult thing to do, and I don't want to sacrifice it. I want to make videos like I build engines, like I port cylinder heads. I like things done a certain way. So the videos will come out whenever I can get to them. I just really, really appreciate everybody that's followed along, watched the videos, and subscribed to our channel. Thank you so much. Cheers to 2023.